What's going on, man? It's good to see you, bro. It's really good to see you. So, when's the last time I saw you? It was at the Luxund event? Was that? Okay. Yeah, man. I hope that was a good event. I liked it. Did you enjoy it?
I did. There was some good conversation that came from it.
Yeah. It was really nice having you there, man. Everybody, had a lot to say about the event. They enjoyed it. But today, there's a couple, there's some questions I want to ask. I want to talk about a few things because I think there's a lot that you have to offer as far as like information and insight, and just basic knowledge and edification on a lot of different things. And I want to ask, there are people that I know that are kind of in my circle that I want to kind of put on a platform as far as information goes and as far as just the ins and outs of certain industries go. Their stories, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody has a story. Everybody takes from other people to get to where they want to go. You know what I'm saying? First of all, and this is kind of I know who you are. I know you. I know who you are. I know what you do and things like that. But it's in a deeper sense of the question. Who are you? Who are you? Who is Marvin James?
Probably a student. Just like someone who likes to learn, someone who's really curious. I think I'm getting a sense of sort of the roles that I take on naturally and sort of like what I gravitate towards instinctually. I feel like those are things probably like the best, like the elements of your nature are probably like the best indicators of who you are.
Yeah.
Like the stuff you just like constantly are resurfacing towards.
Right.
So for me, I feel like that's like community is a big part of that, and like sort of creating connections is a big part of that. I think that's like between people, but I think also just like with like the learning and like with like trying to connect information and understanding as well. So I feel like those are like probably some big tenets of who I am as a person. Like someone who's really curious, someone who's like really intentional about trying to learn things.
Yeah.
And then someone who's like who likes to be in community and share that with other folks as well.
You said that part of it, it's elements of your nature, and you said that a big part of that is, having the desire to learn, being curious. I love that because I personally feel as though the desire to learn is an element of a person's personality that can take them so many places, because when you have the desire to learn, you're always open. You know what I'm saying? You're always open, and you always want to get more knowledge. You're always ready to get more knowledge. You know what I'm saying? How would you say that element of your nature has impacted your life?
I think it's allowed me to be really fluid in terms of how I move through like a work environment, or just like the idea of career even, or like the idea of like what is my job title or description,
right.
What is the medium or craft that I'm like most focused on. I think like just knowing that learning is sort of the foundational component of all of those things. It's like allowed me to be really accepting of taking on something that is new again, and not being super constrained or limited to what I currently know.
Right.
And like what my current set of skills are. Like being okay with entering another environment where like those skills maybe I need other skills as well.
Right.
And sort of trying to figure out how to, I've learned this already, and I'm now trying to do, now I'm trying to do some like UX design or like making a website. Like how does what I've learned already sort of allow me to do that?
Right.
Or, like fit into this new sort of environment.
So it's like building on knowledge.
For sure.
Yeah, for sure. What would you say What would you say is your occupation today? If you had to say it was one or two or three things, whatever that may be, what would you say that is now?
Yeah, I think is a mix of stuff. I'd say, like, community service design is one thing that I'm really focused on right now. I like just recently, like this, 2 days ago or something, just actually got a paid job to do that.
Right.
Which is like a weird sort of validating thing.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's a thing that I've also been doing. I know that's the thing I've also been doing for like probably 3 years now.
Without getting a paycheck
without
somebody saying this is who you are.
For sure.
Yeah, that's crazy how, it is crazy how a lot of times we need a paycheck or another person to give us a role
For sure.
for us to feel validated in who we already know we are.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. The validation culture is a tricky thing.
It's a tricky
because
thing.
it doesn't always allow folks to really like step into the thing that they know without like someone else being like, yo,
man.
like this is you. Like
right.
It's been known, but
right.
someone else's perspective on that to really allow you to see it as well.
That's wow. That's so interesting because I had been looking at this this video of Jay-Z, and he was talking to I think the guy who he was talking to was a writer for he's a writer or an editor or a writer for a magazine or a newspaper. I forget his name, but anyway, Jay-Z, the part of what he was saying was that as an artist or whatever it is that you are, for you to be successful and for you to get to where you want to go, there's a knowing. There's a knowing. Like I was saying, I was looking at a video where Jay-Z was talking about, that there's a knowing, and he was saying that even if, it's an artist or whatever it is that you do, if something doesn't work now, there's a knowing that you have that says, even if it doesn't work today, it's going to work this time or later or whatever. It's going to work. They may not know it. Other people may not have given you some form of validation or whatever it is, but you know what you are. You know what you want to do. You know what you're capable of. And it's so funny that you say that. A lot of times it's weird that I got validated because I got this paid job, but before you even got that, you had already been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Before you had that kind of validation.
Sometimes folks can be a bit intimidated by what they know.
Right.
Or just like not, I don't know, just be uncertain.
You mean intimidated by what they know about themselves?
Yeah. Just like feel uncertain to like really step into that or embrace that. For like just it's just doubt, like really just like not wanting to be wrong, not wanting to have like someone else tell you like, no, you're not that, or like invalidate you when you're trying to really step into that space. Like it can be a vulnerable adjustment period that comes with it, but it's a necessary one for sure.
You're right. But that adjustment period is where the most growth takes place.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That place of kind of being uncertain is where you really go from one level to another. I feel like,
For sure. I've had to do that. I think because I've tried to or been intentional about stepping into places where wasn't before. I've had to do that often, and so it's like that took work from a community standpoint, like stepping into that scenario. I think also stepping into it as like an artist as well and as a designer is a different sort of challenge as well.
Right.
So it's like I don't know. I feel like the more you do that, maybe the easier it gets.
Okay.
Or just you just kind of accept that as part of what the process requires.
Right.
Maybe more than anything else.
Yeah. Community service design.
Yeah.
I know what that is, and I love it because it takes a lot out of design that I think hinders creativity. You know what I'm saying? But tell me a little bit about what that is.
Yeah, I feel like for me it's thinking about elements of design thinking, which can be like it's oftentimes very problem solving oriented.
Problem solving.
Yeah, oftentimes like very can be research oriented as well, or just like very iterative.
Right.
So it's sort of taking that sort of design thinking approach and applying that to like, how can I service community? And I think I'm specifically going at it through the filter of like the community that I'm wanting to engage and support is like a creative community, thinking of like young multidisciplinary artists.
Right.
And how can I design services, programs, environments, or experiences that
Right.
can support those folks?
Absolutely. 100%.
And so it takes on a mix of things where it's like it can be as simple as just organizing. It could be as simple as this, really.
Yeah.
Like having a conversation with an artist and engaging with them and sort of creating a service that allows them to share some of their
Right.
story.
Right.
It can be sort of trying to develop an event framework that can be open source, so that an organizer in Amsterdam or an organizer in Chicago
Mm-hmm.
can put together an event that sort of reaches or like it sits upon some like tenets that are established through like the service design process. So it's like takes on different forms, but I think sort of use that as a filter for how I go about engaging with like young creative community.
Okay. Now, have you, at this point in life, would you say, I mean, a lot of people don't. It takes a while for people to even think about this sort of question, but would you say that you've identified your purpose? And if so, what would you say that is?
I feel like I've definitely identified aspects of it. Like it's still sort of coalescing. Like there's a lot of things that I feel like I'm intended on doing, or things that I have set an intention on doing.
Mm-hmm.
I think at the moment they kind of are happening separately, or I'm still in the process of like webbing those things together and allowing all of those like various purposes to kind of like coalesce.
Right.
But I definitely feel like they're in the realm of like doing community work, supporting like creatives. I think it's sort of like doing work in the creative economy, and then like that sort of was my entry point to a lot of this work. And then sort of getting in that space, it was like, okay, how do I kind of liberate this space and open this space up, or make it more accessible to folks who look like me or come from a similar background as I do? So I think it's a lot of work in that space, and I think it's also just like also purpose is just like in expression and in sharing a lot of those things. Yeah.
Right. If you could identify like small slivers of whatever your purpose is, something more specific, if you will, and you had to identify whatever that is, what would you say it is, if you could? Something
specific. I feel like the like learning and teaching, like sort of that knowledge sharing that comes with either learning or it comes with teaching. Like I feel like that's a part of it. Yeah.
Do you feel like, or what would you say in recent times, just throughout your life, as far as knowledge and teaching, what is a lesson that you've learned throughout your life that has helped you and that you would like to share with people in a basic sense or essential sense?
I feel like there's a few. One that came to mind from this conversation was like advice from a boss I had a while ago. That was just like talking about experts and like why you don't want to be an expert is like I basically sort of position it as like experts are folks who feel like they've learned everything and know everything, and so they kind of lose some of that curiosity that someone who feels like they don't know everything would have. So like to really sit in this space of knowing you don't know everything and being really okay with that, and just like embracing the learning process,
I love it.
as opposed to just like trying to present yourself as an expert.
Message. I love that. Because when you find that, when you get to a point where you think you know everything,
Yeah.
when you think you know everything, you're not, like you said, you're not going to be curious anymore. You're not going to keep trying to go further. You know, it's hard for me to be around people who think they know everything, because though that's a person who has, in one way or another, has shut themselves off from listening.
Yeah.
And it's growth stunting in a lot of different ways. When you feel like you've gotten to a place where nobody can tell me anything about something. There's always more to learn. I feel like there's always more to learn. There's always, things change so much, you know what I mean? Things evolve so much, and people evolve so much. And what I found throughout my life is wanting to know more, wanting to get to a point where you can get more information to do something better, always puts me in a place where I'm better than I was before, because I don't ever want to feel like there's nothing left to do. That's a scary place to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's
Absolutely.
a really scary place to be when you feel like there's nothing left to do.
Absolutely.
Because that kind of leads to idleness, and idleness is a very dangerous place to be in. Throughout my life, being idle has never led to anything positive, ever.
I hear that.
Now, a couple other questions. As far as your purpose, let me ask this: what mediums in recent times are you exploring?
Yeah, I would say there's like 3 mediums I interact with the most. Like
Okay.
Clothing, space, and like curriculum.
Okay.
I would say like those are the 3 mediums that I like from a design standpoint.
Yeah.
I'm like most concerned with.
Mm-hmm.
So like on the clothing design, I think using that medium as a way to like using clothes as a canvas the same way
Mm-hmm.
sort of a painter would like.
Mm-hmm.
Using the canvas for storytelling, for conversation, as well as for like research to like how can I learn something and then sort of share what I've learned on this jacket or
Right.
this pant or whatever else.
Tell me, because I love design myself. I love clothing. Always have. Always will. I think that's one of the ways you and I connected. The first time we actually met, you had on something. I was like, man, that's really dope. Then I took a photo and everything like that.
Yeah.
That's how we connected.
For
Was
sure,
basically
for sure.
through design and expression. But tell me how you see a way to kind of teach or tell a story through, let's say, a jacket.
Yeah. So I think a lot of it becomes sort of like creating a whole system around the jacket as well, right?
Yeah.
Like an ecosystem around it.
Right.
So like make a jacket. I think it's for me. It kind of starts with like way before the jacket even. It's like, I'm right now really interested in space and in environment, right? And so I'm doing a lot of research and study around that. And there's like certain elements or certain things that I'll come across that I find to be really interesting, and that I want to have more conversation around. So, for example, like thinking about neighborhoods and thinking about like neighborhood watches and like sort of that approach of like a neighborhood being an environment, just like the neighborhood watch sign in general.
Yeah,
like, right?
yeah.
Like the notion of a neighborhood watching feels like not the way you create community.
Right.
And so like
It feels very anti-community.
It does. So I just like reflect on that and like, I don't know, consider solutions to it. So it's like, is a step forward or is like a way to iterate on the idea of a neighborhood watch, like neighborhood acknowledgement. And then what would a neighborhood acknowledgement like sign look like or feel like? And so like playing with this thought or playing with this sort of like theory and then applying that to a piece of clothing.
Love it.
And then it's sort of like, okay, you have this shirt now that says neighborhood acknowledgement. How do you do more storytelling around that? So then it becomes like the photo, like the lookbook for that.
Right.
Or like, are there video interviews for that as well? And then sort of, in total, the clothes kind of are like, I don't know, the linchpin of that whole conversation, but it begins with like just a broader study and sort of culminates in like a visual or something else to like give context for that,
Right.
for that, for learning that thing.
Right. I love that.
Yeah.
That's very insightful. I like that idea. And perhaps at the next Lux Fund event, we can implement something like that for a lot of the stuff that you're doing, in addition to some of the stuff that I'm designing. Because you create something, and you know what it took to create that, and you know where it started, right? You know how you sourced the material, you know what you were thinking when you made it, and you know all of the influence that went into making it. But somebody will see it and they'll just say, "Oh, I like the way it looks."
For sure.
I love that. That's dope.
Yeah.
But it's like, yeah, I know, but you don't. I put so much into this. You need to know more.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know.
Absolutely. It's a funny thing. It's a cool thing. I feel like I was talking to the homie Ephraim about this, and he was like, that exchange, right? Like, it's there's a difference. There's like, you can want someone to understand you, or you can want someone to feel you.
Yeah.
And like just kind of get the sentiment of it. And I think being okay with both is important.
Right.
But I think also just like the reinterpretation of it as well is like, it's a beautiful thing. It really brings them into the creative process as well, and like allows their point of view to be what it becomes, truthfully.
Right.
And so it's an interesting exchange, and I'm like, I don't know. I'm learning what that's about.
Right.
You know, as I kind of get into this.
Yeah. Now there were the three different mediums that you said that you're actually exploring right now. In what ways do you see? And I feel like you kind of touched on this already, but in what ways do you see exploring those different mediums? In what ways do you see those actually helping you to fulfill your purpose?
Yeah. I think when at a time when they're kind of all working in harmony together, that'll be a good space for sure. I think like looking at spatial design is really a big part of that, because it's like, how can I sort of what's an environment that would like house all of these different processes? And then that could be a space where curriculum gets implemented. Right. That could be a space where like fashion, or also just generally like art and expression can like live. And like they can kind of be in conversation with each other. Yeah. So how can folks sort of be on both ends of that spectrum, where it's like we're learning about different creative processes. Like for me, that's my favorite part about teaching, is like the learning that comes with it. Like that's really the only reason. That's not the only reason, but it's one of the main reasons why I want to teach, is so that I can learn. Yeah.
Because you learn through teaching.
For sure.
100%.
It's like, I feel like to try to teach in any other way is not like, you're missing the point.
You are.
It's just because like I want to learn the things I don't know, and it's like, how can we just do this simultaneously?
Right.
Like, how can we do this together?
Right. And doing research is not the end all be all to learning. You know what I mean? Exploring it through conversation and having back and forth, having a dialogue. You learn. I've learned so much in the past 20 minutes talking to you. You know what I mean? Like having a dialogue is another way that I think is a very effective way of learning yourself.
Absolutely. So like allowing that to happen, as well as like allowing people to like make the things, and like giving support for people to make whatever mediums that they're really participating in. Like having that be a part of that sort of environment as well, so that then they can be exhibited and shown in this space. So I feel like the hope is for those three. Like, I'm gonna make things, I think, trying to create space for other people to do the same, and then trying to create space where we can both like all kind of learn how to make more stuff, and just continue to be curious and continue to like, I don't know, take in new perspectives and everything else.
100%.
It's like the world that's like, I don't know, trying to piece together through those different mediums. Yeah.
I know that was supposed to be my last question, but now I have another. Like, you know, as a creative, right? You have like a vision, and you have a taste.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's things that you like that hit your eye, and you're like, I love that silhouette. You know, I love the way that those pants go with that shirt, or I love that color scheme, or I love that pattern, or I love the textures of this fabric. Whatever it is, I like the way those shoes go with that. You know, whatever your taste is. Being a creative, I find myself, I'm very particular. I can't help it. You know, I'm a very particular person, and there's certain things that I'm drawn to that I'm just like, that's the way to do it. In my mind, I'm thinking, that's how you do it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some other creatives have different tastes.
For sure.
You know what I mean? Other people feel different ways about different things as far as visual aspects go. And sometimes that can conflict, you know what I mean? And when you are doing something like community design, you know, how can you balance that? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because in a way that's kind of, it's inviting.
For sure.
To all different kinds of creatives, right?
For sure.
And not all creatives are created equal.
Yeah,
I feel like as far as what I see is in how I feel about I can't help how I feel about things.
For sure.
Aesthetically.
Yeah.
And for me, I want to be welcoming.
Yeah.
You want to be welcoming, but you also have to. You can't help but be who you are and be particular.
For sure.
So how do you balance that?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. It's a really interesting question. I feel like with Meet the Youngs in particular, like really try to create systems.
You said Meet the Youngs. Before you go forward, what's Meet the Youngs? Let's talk about that.
Meet the Youngs is sort of this. That's what I've been putting a lot of like the community service design effort behind. Consider it like a community center that's there to support the experiences and expressions of like young non-traditional creatives. So
right.
Across discipline, sort of across city, across age, all those sort of like dividing things.
Yeah.
Try to
love it.
sit above it.
Right. Okay.
And so I think when it comes to taste as well, it's like, okay, how do you not allow varying tastes or varying like aesthetics to how do you create services that can benefit all those different aesthetics?
Yeah.
Or all those different tastes, right?
Right.
I think that's really like, for me, the big barrier within that is like brand, like that can create some friction because you create a brand aesthetic.
It's exclusive.
Yeah.
It's exclusionary in a space that's made to be inclusionary.
For sure,
you know?
For sure. So I think it's just really trying to create really foundational like support systems or like programs that other people with varying aesthetics can own themselves. Right. And like you just use this as a tool more than anything else. Right. And then bring it to life. Right. Through your own aesthetic or through your own like whatever your particular taste is. So I think really just trying to create really fundamental tools. Like one example is like sort of have like with Will and with Sonia, who are like other co-founders of the project, have built this thing that we call like the Young's Map, or like meeting agenda proposal, which is kind of meant to be a tool to help anyone really organize like a community event. Okay. And so that's something that if you're a photographer in New York and you want to do a photo show and your photo style is way different than like my photo style, right. Like the tool would still support you.
It would still benefit you, yeah.
It would still benefit you and be able to like sort of give you some sort of framework to really put this event together. And so I think it's like trying to create things that are independent of taste, right, that are sort of universally applicable or like useful. That allows that to happen.
I think that and I think that's very necessary. You know what I mean? I think that's very necessary because a lot of people, you know, they don't know the first thing about how to get where they want to go or how they can create, you know, start this event or create it. And there are so many there's so much red tape that doesn't even really exist, but it's this red tape that people see before they've even tried. There are so many basic, I don't know what you want to call it, but things that are keeping people from getting done what they want to get done because they've imagined all of these obstacles. You know, a lot of people imagine obstacles before they even meet the obstacle. And I think that something like this kind of gives them something where they can visualize it and they can say, oh, this is how I can do this. And because once they visualize it, once they've imagined it, then it takes away some of those imaginary obstacles.
For sure,
you know?
for sure.
So I think that's really, really necessary, and I think it's I think that's vital, especially today, because I think it's, especially for young people, it's a lot harder and it's a lot more overwhelming than it ever was before.
Absolutely.
Even though there are more tools now than there ever were, it's a lot more overwhelming because there's so much noise.
For
you know what I'm saying?
For sure. It's kind of in a place where you can do anything, but there's not really like a clear pathway.
Yeah.
Like, how do I pursue that, or how do I like organize my steps?
Yeah.
In pursuit of all of these.
Yeah.
Like disciplines or.
And I think it's okay that there's no clear pathway, because I find that when you create your own pathway and when you just figure it out, that's the most important part of the journey.
For sure.
Is figuring out that pathway, basically, making a beaten path yourself with your own 2 feet.
Yeah.
It's really important for people to understand and realize that it's okay to not have a clear pathway at first. What is important is that you act, is that you do, is that you go. You're gonna fall, you're gonna make mistakes, you're gonna fail. You have to fail to be great.
Absolutely.
You have to fail.
Absolutely.
You have to fall. You have to, you know what I mean? No, there is no one no one has ever existed in the history of human existence that has been great at anything that did not fail multiple times before they became great. Yeah. So finding your own path is essential, I find, to getting to where you want to go. But I think that this tool that you are implementing kind of helps get the ball rolling, because it helps them see that, oh, first of all, I can do this, and here are some of the things that I should consider in doing it. I think a lot of times that's just that right there is enough.
For sure.
Okay, cool. All right, thanks for coming, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
It was good, man. We're gonna do it again, man. We got a lot of work ahead of us.
We got a lot to talk about.
A lot to do.